There are advocates primarily on the national front. Annually, they do a conference, but they also do a lot of seminars. This year, they did another equity seminar in Washington, D.C. that was well attended and talks about issues of fairness and adequacy and equity in terms of public education. As a region, we have representatives that serve on the board of directors for the National School Board Association, and I'd like to bring them up. Lydia Tadone is from Connecticut, and Jake Oliveira is from Massachusetts. Frequently, we're compared to our two closest neighbors in terms of our academic performance and a whole host of indicators. So they're going to talk a little bit about NSBA, some of the programs, some of the issues. I also want to acknowledge, although she could not stay, Ann Gruenberg from the Connecticut School Board Association. She was the president, joined us this morning for Dusty Rader's presentation, but she had to get back to Connecticut. So Lydia and Jake, if you want to say a few words.
Thank you for the invite today, President Saviano, and it's always a great opportunity to attend your annual conference. And as Tim had mentioned, I'm Lydia Tadone. I live outside of Hartford, Connecticut, and so it just took me, less than 2 hours to get here. So again, thank you, and congratulations to Mike and the Pawtucket School Committee for all the work that you do, a well-deserved and honor that you are receiving. So, with that, we represent you as your regional directors on the National School Board Association. We also have a third one, Nandi Sekou from Virgin Islands, but a little difficult for her to get here, so Jake and I will be here. As Tim had mentioned before, we just freshly came off a very good, well-attended annual conference sponsored by NSBA, and it was in Denver, so we did.
Seems a bit fitting for the conversation earlier, but
yes, it does. So John, your president, Saviano, was there, and also Margaret was there, and several others. So that is the culmination of a year-long work that NSBA and your state association school committees also do. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Jake, and can talk a little bit further about what we've been doing throughout the year and moving forward.
yeah. Well, thank you, Lydia, and thank you all. It's always nice to be in the state of Rhode Island. There's one very specific area which Massachusetts and Rhode Island are very unique in, is that we're both called school committees. The other places in the country, they're called school boards, so we always have that little unique connection that's on there. Knowing that we are the only thing standing between you and lunch, we will be very brief. It's not like there's anything going on at the federal level whatsoever that we want to talk about. If you've been following the news lately, certainly this past week was an interesting time in Washington. I was down there for a couple of days for my day job, and talking about some of the issues that are outside of education and how they impact us in the states is something that NSBA has been very active in. Regardless of how you feel about the Affordable Care Act, the actions taken this past week by the U.S. House of Representatives, and the impact it potentially could have for something that we get quite a lot of reimbursement back each year in Medicaid reimbursements. Changes to those programs, changes in the impacts that those reimbursements could have on the state level for Medicaid can impact the bottom line. Tim had just mentioned the $28 million gap for Pawtucket Public Schools. I think all of our school systems in all of our states are facing similar economic challenges when it comes to the budget. And any change at the federal level to some of the subsidies that we get, even outside of education, can have profound impact on the resources that your states can provide to your local school districts. NSBA has been very active in pushing back and getting boots on the ground up on Capitol Hill to make those voices of school board members heard in these discussions on Capitol Hill. We had urged our states, our legislators at the federal level this week to vote against the health care option that was passed by the House of Representatives because of the impact on our states. Proud to say that out of our 26-member New England delegation, there was only one vote for the repeal of the health care bill at the federal level. Certainly the 2 congressmen from New York, our 9 from Massachusetts, and 5 from Connecticut all voted against it. However, as it moves to the Senate side, that's where our voices need to be active. You know, I think that it's hit some roadblocks there, but we also need to remind our federal legislators of that impact back on our states and our local school districts. So we have been staying very active on that legislatively. As all of you know, last 2 years ago, the Congress passed the new reauthorization of the Every Student Succeeds Act, which has returned a lot of power back to local states and local school districts, and we are very active on the implementation of that law. One other thing that we're very proud of and what we're very active on right now is a public relations campaign to stand up for public schools. If you haven't already, and John probably mentioned this earlier, we need to have strong voices to show the good work that's happening within our school districts. There are a lot of voices out there that will put down public schools or talk about some of the failings or perceived failings within our schools. We have an opportunity to put a human voice and face to those issues to show the great work that's happening within our schools. Certainly there are challenges, but there is great opportunities as well. So we ask you to join Massachusetts, Connecticut, and all the state associations to really actively engage on that campaign to raise the profile of public education. So at this point in time, we might, I don't know if we have time for questions at all. I see someone's hand raised. Oh, Bruce Peliquin from Maine, the northern area of Maine, who's voted for it. And so he's up in the northern country out there, probably the most remote area. But the rest of our delegations from the other 25 members all voted against it. So.